Part 1. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 1. I retired. The moon was particularly stingy today, hiding in the clouds without even a ray of light coming out. The dark coastline was eerily silent except for the sound of waves crashing. After a long time, a groan was heard, a black figure crawled out of the sea, and then fell on the beach, followed by the sound of heavy breathing, all of which seemed particularly strange on this silent and uninhabited coast. The black shadow turned over and patted the sand on his body with his hand. After 2 heavy slaps, the black shadow fumbled around for a while before taking out a mobile phone in a waterproof bag. After hesitating, he opened the address book and clicked on the only number. Beep, beep, beep. It took a while before the other party connected. "Hey, are you here?" a deep, deep voice said. "You don't know whether I've arrived or not. You know exactly where I am now. Stop talking so much nonsense. We promised to put on a scene, but you actually come to your senses. Do you really want me to die? What a good one. Why don't you say anything, my father?" The shadow became more and more excited as he spoke, but he quickly calmed down. "You know, no one who can get to that position is a fool. If you don't do this, it will be difficult for you to escape. I have already arranged your identity. I will send you an address. You can get it there when the time comes." That voice still so calm, as if nothing could affect him. "What about my original identity? I'll log out." "Are you really leaving me no identity?" "I want to keep it for you too, but how? Even if it's 127 pigs, it's troublesome enough, let alone a human being. And have you kept it for me? Even if those people are really bastards, you don't need to judge them. We have it all. Come. You. Why do you want me to go if you are useful? You will only say that the involvement is serious, and then let them hang out in a prison that is more comfortable than a hotel for a few years without any pain? The hotel will at least pay. You tell me. How can I give those children an explanation if I leave them alone?" Black Shadow almost yelled. "You should know that their identities are too involved. Impulsiveness will not solve the problem. Just looking for temporary pleasure will not achieve great things. Here we go again, here we go again. I've said before that I don't want to be a big deal. You forced me to do all this in the first place. I just want to be a salted fish, but you want me to stand up. I'm already tired. Mom, where are you? Just help me explain and let me live in peace for a few days." The voice of the shadow was full of laziness, like an old man in his twilight years. "Don't cause trouble over there. You have to remember your identity. You are my son. Your son is already dead. It's your choice, idle. Go back and tell the remaining people that I will kill them as soon as they get out. Even Jesus can't keep them, I said so." The black shadow hit hard. He ended the conversation and hung up the phone. The black shadow slowly walked out from the coastline. It was not until the neon lights in the distance shone on him that he realized that the black shadow was just a young man wearing a diving suit. The young man turned around, looked at the motherland thousands of miles away, and murmured, "I have left my hometown for the second time. My life is really rough." Then he turned around and left the place without looking back. In an ordinary house thousands of miles away, the man didn't show the slightest surprise after being hung up on, as if he had expected what would happen. He put down the phone, picked up the phone, and said to the phone, "Let's make some arrangements. I want to see the chief." A middle-aged man walked out of the room. The man's face looked older than that of ordinary middle-aged men, and his temples were gray. There is no so-called domineering side. Except for standing upright, no matter who looks at him at first glance, he will think that he is just an ordinary middle-aged man. But even ordinary people know that no one who can live in this compound is simple. There was a knock on the door. "Come in." A strong voice came from behind the door. The man opened the door, entered the office, saluted the old man sitting at work, "Hello, chief," and stood aside. "Okay, okay, there's no need to be so formal. Sit down." "Have Zion's affairs been arranged?" the old man asked while reviewing the documents. "Everything has been arranged, let's go to Neon." The man still stood next to the old man and bowed slightly. What Zion did was right. "If I were 10 years younger, I would have killed them all." The old man stopped writing and said. The old man didn't know what he was thinking. He threw the pen on the table and said, "Damn it, I'm building a building here, and they're trying to pry off my foundation. National security, when you go back, investigate this case thoroughly, and arrest everyone involved. Mom will handle it for me, I will support you, let's see who is bigger than me. Anyway, I have only done it for a few years, and I will help clear the way for the younger generation before I abdicate." After the old man said this, he seemed to be discouraged and slumped on the chair. "Whether he goes to Neon, this boy Zion has been making trouble here for so long, or he goes there to make trouble, arrange for him to study for a few years, and when we take care of it, he can come back. By then, maybe you can even I have grandchildren. I think Zion peed on me back then, ha 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 ha," the old man said to himself. No one could hear him clearly except Zhao Qiuping, who was as green as a pine tree next to him. Nagasaki. A young man holding a document bag walked aimlessly on the street until he reached a small park. The boy sat on a bench in the park, opened the document bag, and opened the bread he had just bought on the road. While eating, look at his current identity. Name, Lin Zion. Ancestral home, Yangchang. Identity, Chinese student. Age, 16 years old. Neon name, Kongmu Qingtian. There are also Huasia's ID card, passport, bank card, and admission certificate of Qingshan International Private High School. The name has not been changed. I thought I would change it. Also, why is the photo on this ID card so ugly? Even the Japanese name has been decided for me. I originally wanted to call it Rishuangongban or Taiaohada. And what is the name of this high school? There is only 1 million in this card, which is only more than 60,000 RMB. How can I survive? Lin Zion complained while eating. I am a generation of Tianzun, but I have fallen to this. Lin Zion's words can be said to be wrong or not. Thinking of his previous life, he practiced the true method for more than 3,600 years and cultivated to live as long as the heaven and earth. After immortality, he went to die and seek a higher level of transcendence. Knowing that there was still an upper world, he explored the remains of the upper world everywhere. After asking around, he found the place where the world was broken. When he broke the world, he found that their world was just a trial place of a sect in the upper world. Lin Zion fought with the people of that sect and was killed by a lightning that the person casually summoned. Before he died, he realized that they were just caged birds of the real power. That world was a birdcage. The so-called heavenly way was just a higher level of power. Lin Zion still remembered that the brick-sized magic weapon was their world. Lin Zion was not the first person to break the world, nor was he the last person to break the world. I think the predecessors were also killed by lightning. When Lin Zion first came to this world, although his true spirit was not ignorant, he was in a state of primordial judgment. He was not conscious until he was 10 years old. Before he was 10 years old, he was dominated by instinct. This made Lin Zion look a little stupid before he was 10 years old, but after he was 10 years old, it was like he suddenly got enlightened. He could learn everything at once. This led to his father conscripting him at the age of 13. Until a big case a few days ago, he made a big mistake. In fact, Lin Zion doesn't blame his father. He has his concerns, but I also have my own code of conduct. Although Lin Zion in his previous life was not a so-called righteous path, he was not a demon path either. Lin Zion is really obsessed with this family. He had a family in his previous life, but he was like an orphan. In order to survive, he embarked on the path of seeking the truth. There was no one around him who could be trusted. It can be said that he was lonely for life. Lin Zion is tired of the feeling of walking alone on the road. Lin Zion feels the warmth of home here. He does not seek immortality in his new life, but he seeks happiness. In fact, when he just woke up, Lin Zion knew that there was something wrong with this world. Ghosts were rampant, and there were also people seeking the truth. Later, he followed his father Zhao Qiuping to come into contact with many similar supernatural events. Lin Zion felt that he still had to practice, otherwise it would be easy to die unclearly. Then the question is, the previous life skills are obviously not suitable for this world, so what should I do? Change it? After secretly using his father's authority to check many cases, Lin Zion found that there are many sources of special power in this world, all kinds of strange. Using his father's identity, Lin Zion checked some local cultivation methods and used a special method to practice. Some chapters were blocked. I put them in the group. Please pick them up. Group number, 634086986. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 2. It is true that the martial arts he practiced was a patchwork, but it does not mean that it is not strong. At least it is more suitable for Lin Zion than the general local martial arts. But there is one advantage of local martial arts, that is, there is no qualification restriction, and the threshold is terribly low, because it focuses on perception and accumulation. I don't know if it is the same in Japan. In order to get the capital to survive, Lin Zion began to organize and deduce martial arts at the age of 11. He was driven here just after practicing martial arts. His strength is only 1/10,000th of that. Back then, he could call the wind and rain with just a breath, and the sky and the earth would fall apart with the raise of his hand. It's a pity that he was struck to death by a thunderbolt, Lin Zion said self-deprecatingly. Sort out the documents around you, keep the useful ones such as ID cards, and deal with the rest. As for how to deal with them, this is a bit magical. He took the document in his hand, snapped his fingers with his other hand, and a small flame emerged from his fingertips. He lit the document, and the document burned in his hand. His hand seemed to be unable to feel the temperature until the document burned out, leaving some ash on the ground. He blew gently, and the paper ash turned into dust as if it was ground, floating under the bushes next to him and turning into soil. Lin Zion patted the non-existent dust on his hand, looking at the jade-like hand. There was no trace of burning, as if it was not his hand holding the document just now. This is just a simple point about the conversion and utilization of energy. Lin Zion took the things, took the garbage, got up and walked out of the park. On the dark street, a white light slowly floated over from a distance, until he got closer and found that it was a person playing with a mobile phone. Lin Zion was using the newly bought mobile phone to check the information to see where the Qingshan International Private High School was. As for the one he brought with him, he had already disposed of it together with the diving suit. Tokyo is so far away. Dad is not reliable at all, and he doesn't know how to arrange a closer one. But the quality of the school seems to be good. The deviation value of Tokyo's top 3, how can Dad have so much money to send me to such a school? He must have been greedy. You know, the deviation value is almost as important as China's enrollment rate. The higher the deviation value, the better the school, and of course the more expensive the tuition. With Dad's salary, he definitely can't afford to send me to school. I didn't expect that he, with thick eyebrows and big eyes, would betray the revolution. I'm in Nagasaki now, and there are more than 10 days before school starts. Which route should I take? Lin Zion felt dizzy when he thought of the money in his bank card. According to Tokyo's prices, he just roughly calculated that it would cost at least 90,000 yen to live near Tokyo for a month, not counting the house. The house must not be rented. Now the practice is just in its infancy, and Lin Zion has just started practicing. He doesn't know if there are any problems. What if the practice is too noisy, or he is disturbed by others in the middle of the practice, resulting in obsession? Must buy a house. Lin Zion checked the housing prices in Neon again. After reading it, Lin Zion was disappointed. He didn't expect that I would be stumped by money. I have to find a way to make money, but no one wants me to work part-time as a miner, not to mention where can I get so much money from part-time jobs. Lin Zion finally decided to solve the money problem first. As for how to solve it, of course, it is to make money in a side way. After thinking it over, Lin Zion walked back to the city of Nagasaki. A man with a bag on his back walked out of the alley on the side of the road and stood under the street light. He was wearing a white shirt and an ordinary casual jacket on the outside. His messy hair and sad face showed that he was an unsuccessful young man. Minors are of course not allowed to enter the casino, so Lin Zion made a little change. He was not short in height, about 178 centimeters, and he changed the muscles on his face to make him look older. Now no one believes him when he says he is a high school student. He took out all the money in his bank card. He had to get rid of the card sooner or later anyway, so he opened a new card and bought a bag at a roadside stall. He was ready to start his journey to make money. He stopped a car and said to the middle-aged bald driver after getting in, "Let's go to the largest casino nearby." The driver turned his head and looked at Lin Zion, and said earnestly, "It's not too late to regret now. Find a job honestly. Don't be like me when I was young. I always wanted to get rich overnight. In the end, I almost got my wife and children separated before I woke up." Lin Zion's face twitched unnaturally, and he almost broke down. Thinking about his current personality, Lin Zion pretended to be impatient and said, "Are you going or not? If not, I will change the car." "Go, go, go." Good words can't persuade the damned ghost. The driver immediately turned around and drove the car, without noticing Lin Zion's stiff expression. The driver told Lin Zion about his experience all the way, and Lin Zion was stunned. Damn. No novels dare not write like this. He said that this driver uncle was a legendary figure. His name was Kurofuji Tatsuo. He came from the countryside and worked in various jobs in Osaka. Finally, he worked as a waiter in a casino. He was quite smart and won the heart of an old cleaner. The old man also saw his restlessness and told him about what happened in the past. The old man said that he was a gambling master of Neon. In the past, no one could beat him in Neon. In addition, he was young and energetic. The old man traveled to China, but before he could enter the mainland, he was killed by a Chinese named Gao Jin on the cruise ship to China. He gambled 3 games in total and lost miserably. In the first game, he gambled for the title. He lost his reputation and now he dared not call himself the god of gamblers. In the second game, he gambled for his property. He lost money and all his property. In the third game, he gambled for his skills. His left little finger remained there forever and he could no longer make money with his gambling skills. The old man said that I have some talent, but if I want to learn gambling, I have to cut off my little finger. I think the old man definitely didn't expect me to be so ruthless at that time. Kureteng raised his left hand backwards and said. Lin Zion saw that the little finger of his left hand was indeed missing a section. The result was self-evident. He learned the old man's gambling skills and began to run rampant in Neon. After a while, he became a celebrity in the Neon gambling world. Money, status, fame, women, everything. But I made a mistake, the same mistake as the old man. I was arrogant and was manipulated. That night I lost everything. Those former friends stayed away from me one by one. Those women who had once sworn to each other took away my last possessions. Hope, during that time I lived on the streets and drank all day long, and finally I was admitted to the hospital due to alcohol poisoning. Hiteng's face was hidden in the shadows, and he said with an almost trembling voice. Lin Zian only heard endless sighs from it. Hiteng suddenly raised his head, and his face reappeared in the light of the street lamp, filled with a warm smile. Fortunately, the most important person in my life is here, you know? I saw her first when I woke up. I thought she was an angel. At that moment, Lin Zian felt that even the rear-view mirror had become dazzling, and even the usually unpalatable dog food had become sweeter. When the whole world gave up on me, she didn't. When she cried and asked me where I had been these past few days and why I couldn't find anyone, you know. That was the first time I cried. I cried without eyesight. I married her in the countryside before I came out to start a career, but during the time when I was getting rich, I lost myself, and I felt that she was not worthy of me, and then we divorced. At that time, I had a fortune of millions. But she never asked for anything from me. In the end, I was really embarrassed and gave her some money. But I didn't expect that she was already pregnant at that time. She gave birth secretly and raised it by herself. You don't know. How much pressure does a widow with a child have to bear in a rural area? At this time, Lin Zian, who had cultivated his mind for more than 3,000 years, couldn't help but interrupt him. As a man, I look down on you. You are such a scumbag. I don't know what she sees in you. Black Tang, you are worthy, don't hum her. Unexpectedly, the driver's reaction was even greater than that of Lin Zian. He slapped himself on the face and said loudly, I will spend my whole life repaying it. Then, the rest of the road was completed in eerie silence. Hiteng stopped in front of a luxurious building. When Lin Zian gave the money, Hiteng looked at Lin Zian and said, it's still too late to turn back now, everyone makes mistakes. Lin Zian curled his lips and said, you have no right to criticize me. Just take care of yourself. Lin Zian took the change from Hiteng, opened the door and went out without counting it. When he was about to leave, Hiteng rolled down the window and said to Lin Zian, don't feel sad for me, because of the story just now I made it up. My hand was broken by a machine in the factory, so I was fired, so I came to drive a taxi. As soon as he finished speaking, the car drifted and rushed out, leaving only Lin Zian with a confused look on his face. Hiteng, I eat lemons. This operation forced Lin Zian to speak his native language. Ignoring the looks of others, he strode into the casino gate. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 3. As soon as he entered the door, Lin Zian saw that the hall was full of various game machines, such as slot machines, coin pushers, dance machines, doll machines, and boxing champion game machines. Now is the time when the nightlife begins. There are people on almost every machine, and it is very lively. Lin Zian's first reaction was that he was cheated by Hiteng. He was brought to the game hall, and there was no sign or logo at the door. This is the largest one nearby, so it should be right. Lin Zian walked around the game hall and found that the layout of the game hall was a bit problematic. It seemed to be very large, but in fact, relatively speaking, there should be space behind it. He guessed that the casino was either behind the game hall or on the second floor. Lin Zian slowly released his spiritual sense and scanned the game hall. Sure enough, the second floor of the game hall was a casino, and as for the back, there was a group of people. Lin Zian estimated that they were security guards of the casino and part-time thugs, because they all wore the same uniforms. One of them upstairs made Lin Zian feel very uncomfortable, and the feedback from his spiritual sense was disgusting. But now is not the time to make trouble. As the saying goes, a strong dragon cannot suppress a local snake. You should be honest in other people's territory. This is what Lin Zian has proven through practice, and only Lin Zian knows the price. After a round, Lin Ziyan went directly to the stairs in the middle of the hall. Originally, Lin Ziyan thought he could get away with it, but the two security guards at the stairs stopped him. One of the taller security guards said to Lin Ziyan, "Hello, sir, please show me your membership card." Lin Ziyan replied expressionlessly, "This is my first time here." "Then sir, you can't go in. If you want to apply for a membership card, please go to the counter to apply." The tall security guard made a gesture of invitation to the counter. "Ha! The arrogance of legal gambling," Lin Ziyan complained in a low voice. Lin Ziyan walked to the counter honestly and said to the pretty lady at the counter, "Miss, please help me get a membership card." The lady at the counter looked up, then said to Lin Ziyan with a professional smile, "Hello, sir, you need to show assets of no less than 500,000 yen to apply for a membership card." "I thought it would be 5 million, Lin Ziyan complained, but still took out 500,000 yen from his backpack. 500,000 sounds like a lot, but it's actually only a small stack, because the largest denomination of Japanese money is 10,000 yen, the smallest is 1,000 yen, and all denominations below 1,000 yen are coins." "Sir, are you applying for a temporary card, a monthly card, or an annual card?" The lady at the counter ignored Lin Ziyan's complaints and asked very professionally. "Temporary card. Okay, sir, please take it and hand it to the counter when you leave." The lady at the counter took out a slightly worn yellow-white card from somewhere at the counter and handed it to Lin Ziyan. Lin Ziyan looked surprised and asked, "Don't you need to register your information?" "No, sir. Our membership information is confidential. We only recognize the card number." The lady pointed to a string of numbers on the card. "Thoughtful service." Lin Ziyan didn't want to waste time, so he ended the conversation with the lady, took the money and card and walked back to the stairs. When he passed by two security guards, Lin Ziyan held the membership card with 2 fingers, shook it in front of the security guards, and then walked up to the second floor under the eyes of the 2 security guards. The second floor is larger and more lively than the first floor lobby. Most of them are middle-aged men. There are no women except waiters. By the way, the waiters here are a little underdressed. Don't get me wrong, Lin Ziyan means that it is late March now. Neon is different from China. The temperature is still a bit cold. Go and exchange the money you just took out for chips. And then Lin Ziyan took the chips and walked around the casino, stopping at the dice shaking place for a while. After walking around just now, Lin Ziyan found an embarrassing place. Except for shaking the dice and betting on the size, he didn't know how to do anything else. Although he would learn it quickly, he didn't plan to learn it. Whether in the past life or this life, Lin Ziyan had never gambled, because he knew that he couldn't win the bet. What else could you earn if you beat the boss? But many people couldn't see it clearly. In the past life, everyone had Taoism. If you cheated, you would be easily discovered. If you didn't cheat, you couldn't win, and those props were all tampered with. In this life, if he went to gamble, his father would beat him to death, and there was no need to gamble. He didn't lack money, and he had no place to spend money. Degenerate, Lin Ziyan shook his head, walked to the gambling table, observed for a while and started betting. The chips in front of Lin Ziyan gradually increased. There were losses and wins. He didn't dare to win too exaggeratedly. He lost a little from time to time. He didn't get out of touch with the masses. Compared with those big bets, he could only be regarded as a drizzle, but it moistened things silently. Suddenly, the crowd boiled. "Here he comes! Here he comes! A hot man is here! Let me see who is so powerful, challenging here for 3 consecutive days. I didn't come here the first 2 days, I must come today. He is really not afraid of death, he still comes here after winning so much. Doesn't he know that this place is run by a gangster organization? I know him, his name is Benjiang Shizhung. I heard that his father lost everything in the casino and jumped off the building to his death. All kinds of noisy sounds hit Lin Xian's ears, and the abnormal situation aroused his curiosity. He looked at the stairs and waited for this man. A young man walked out of the stairs, a very ordinary young man, if there was no wandering soul following him. Of course ordinary people can't see that kind of existence, but to Lin Xian's perception, this kind of thing is brighter than a light bulb. Seeing this, Lin Xian has no interest in this matter. He is just using the power of the wandering soul to come out. 1000. I thought I could see a good show about gambling. I quite like God of Gamblers, but it seems that there is really a good show. Because under Lin Xian's perception, the disgusting existence was walking out of the room on the third floor and standing at the fence on the third floor. Lin Xian glanced at him without leaving any trace. To Lin Xian's surprise, he turned out to be a handsome young man with a cold aura. He was talking about something with a bald man at this time, and he didn't seem to pay attention to the god of gamblers who came in. Lin Xian extended his perception and heard the conversation between the two. I'm going to trouble you again this time. I didn't expect that his damn dad would not let go of our casino even after he died. It's okay, this is good for me. Besides, this is what I have to follow up on. After raising him for 3 days, it is time to harvest. I don't know how much my baby can improve this time. Yes, the bald man tensed up and bowed his head to the young man. From their conversation, Lin Xian guessed something, but he didn't want to interfere. With the support of everyone, Benjiang Shi's Hung walked up to dice like stars over the moon. The people next to him quickly got out of the way. Lin Xian knew why everyone was like this, because Lin Xian had the same idea as them. Benjiang Shi's Hung was full of energy and his face was glowing red. In terms of fortune telling, this meant that his face was glowing red and he was proud of the spring breeze. Motoji Shi's Hung was pushed to the main seat by everyone, and he said to the dealer, "Let's get started." Apparently the croupier had received some instructions, and he started to shake the dice cup with an expressionless face. When the croupier stopped, Shi's Hung Motoji put down all his nearly 3 million chips and said, "I'll go big." His move immediately caused a sensation, and people rushed to follow him. Lin Xian also followed up with all his chips. Although Lin Xian intends to take advantage of the situation, he is not blind enough to follow the trend. He has seen it himself, but he still wants to complain about Benjiang Shishin's technique. You let the wandering soul stick his head into the dice cup? In Lin Xian's opinion, this operation had no technical content at all. Half of the wandering soul's head was in the cup and half was outside, which made Lin Xian embarrassed. After a few rounds, the croupier's face turned pale. The chips on the table were already measured in hundreds of millions. Lin Xian's chips had reached more than 50 million, which was almost more than 3 million Chinese coins. Lin Xian discovered that every time he won money, everyone in the casino would produce something similar to mist that would blend into the wandering soul. Every time he won, the wandering soul's body would solidify. It was still a black shadow, but now all the 5 senses are visible. Guessing that the casino was about to take action, Lin Xian left the gambling table with difficulty. This kind of money came so easily that Lin Xian's character was a little shaken. It's best to go change money now, as this place will explode later. For such a large casino, the cash reserves are measured in hundreds of millions, and more than 50 million does not seem much at this time. While the crowd was still cheering, Lin Xian had already changed the money. Now he just asked the waiter for a drink and waited for the show to begin. When I was exchanging money just now, there was another thing. The lady at the counter said that if he spent more than 10 million here, he could get an annual card here. In Lin Xian's opinion, this is a typical trap. When you win so much money from the casino, greed will definitely drive you to come back again. This membership card is for your convenience. Once you get in, you won't be able to get out. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 4. After waiting for 2 more rounds, the casino finally took action. The young man took out a small bottle, and a black shadow with strong resentment rose up and pounced on the wandering soul on the gambling table. The wandering soul was not weak either, and also rushed up. The two fought without any aesthetic sense, but if others dare to raise you, they will not be afraid of you. After a few rounds, the wandering soul was defeated by the black shadow and was swallowed up by the black shadow. The wandering soul also became illusory. At this time, the wandering soul wanted to escape and wanted to get rid of the black shadow, which gave the black shadow an opportunity to swallow it. Soon, the wandering soul was completely swallowed by the black shadow. The black shadow grew a little stronger and began to wander around the casino. After the black shadow swallowed the wandering soul, the young man took the bottle, facing the black shadow with the bottle mouth, and muttered something in his mouth. But the black shadow completely ignored the young man's call, but rushed towards the young man. Lin Zian saw that the young man's strength was not enough to control the black shadow. The black shadow was a collection of resentment and had no reason. It was going to kill the master at any minute. When Lin Zian was wondering about the youth's IQ, the youth took out a ring with a red string from his chest. At first, Lin Zian didn't think anything, but when the black shadow was bounced off by the ring, Lin Zian was shocked. Yes, it's that feeling. I didn't expect to encounter it here. This thing is destined for me. Lin Zian was not talking nonsense. This ring was really destined for him. At that time, the old Taoist priest of Longhu Mountain abdicated, and Lin Zian's father was invited to represent the country to attend the succession ceremony of the new leader, and he also went. There, Lin Zian met the old Taoist priest, who was over 160 years old and still energetic. According to his father, this old Taoist priest was a ruthless person with a great cultivation, and he was considered the first among the practitioners in China. More than 80 years ago, war broke out. In every chaotic world, there will be demons and ghosts causing chaos. The old Tianqi invited the Chinese practitioners to exorcise demons. After that, the old Tianqi led the Longhu Mountain disciples down the mountain. With everyone's efforts, countless ghosts were eliminated within 2 months, and the universe was cleared. During the war, foreign practitioners were kept out. Although Longhu Mountain was not the only one who shed blood for the country, it is still admirable to take the lead. Lin Kuo-en also said that if it were not for the fact that practitioners could not interfere with the change of dynasties of mortals, the war would have ended long ago, because more than 60 years ago, the old Tianqi was immune to guns and cannons. Guns could not break the defense, and cannons could not hit. After the establishment of China, a special department was established to deal with the mysterious side of the incident, and the old Tianqi has always been listed on it. The old Tianqi is still a very open-minded person. After the ceremony, Lin Zian stayed with the old Tianqi for more than 3 months. During this period, Lin Zian almost finished reading the collection of books in Longhu Mountain. Lin Zian was able to see the collection of books in Longhu Mountain because of the words of the old Taoist priest, "It's time now, and you still stick to those obsolete rules. It's a waste to keep these things here. Learn as much as you can." During the time with the old Taoist priest, Lin Zian also learned 2 secret skills of Longhu Mountain from him, the Golden Light Curse and the Yang Lei Fa. Although he only learned them in theory and couldn't use them yet, they were still somewhat useful. Lin Zian, who had read the Longhu Mountain classics, was not completely ignorant. The Yang Lei Fa was only for the head of Longhu Mountain to learn, and the Golden Light Curse was the old Taoist priest's unique skill to be immune to guns and cannons. Lin Zian had seen the old Taoist priest perform the 2 secret skills. Once the Golden Light Curse was opened, all evils retreated and all methods were invulnerable. The Yang Lei Fa was specifically designed to defeat evil spirits and had a destructive effect. Lin Zian also knew that the old Taoist priest valued his identity and saw his extraordinariness, and wanted to bet on him first as a way out for Longhu Mountain. But it cannot be denied that he did learn something. This incense and love cannot be escaped. Lin Zian disdains to escape and promised the old master that he would repay the old master if he had the conditions in the future. Before Lin Zian went down the mountain, he heard the old master say that in that battle, Longhu Mountain lost a ring, a gourd, a magic sword, and a compass. Originally, Lin Zian did not want to look for them specifically, but if they were delivered to the door, he would naturally have to recover them. While Lin Zian was thinking, the young man had already retracted the black shadow, and Ben Jiangxi's hung at the gambling table began to panic. Without the wandering soul and no feedback, Ben Jiangxi's hung dared not bet for a long time. His hands kept shaking, and his originally ruddy face turned cyan and his eyes were bloodshot. Seeing this, Lin Zian shook his head. It was too late to retreat now. This place has become a natural magic circle, a magic circle that will expand negative emotions. If he stops now, the crazy gamblers will tear him to pieces. If he loses, it may be even worse. Seeing Ben Jiangxi's hung hesitating, the gamblers next to him began to make a noise, constantly urging him to place bets. The young man in the distance stood on the fence on the third floor, chuckling at the crazy people on the second floor. After taking a glance, Lin Zian turned his attention back to the gambling table, because Ben Jiangxi's hung had already placed a bet. He lost, and knowing the outcome, he was not surprised at all. The crowd was boiling like Coke with Mentos. When the security guards carried Ben Jiangxi's hung out of the crowd, the people on both sides looked like they were looking at an enemy, wishing to tear him into pieces and eat him. Lin Zian followed the security guards out the door. The cold wind blew, and the whole person sobered up a lot. He slowly hung the disgusting young man and followed them to a house. Lin Zian did not go in, but waited outside the door. "Come on, hand over the money you won 2 days ago," one of the security guards said. "No, do you think I will stay? Since I dared to go to the casino today, I have no plan to come back alive." Ben Jiangxi's hung, who was held by 2 security guards, said nonchalantly. "You don't need to tell me, we will check. I remember you seem to have a sister, I hope she looks good, otherwise it will be difficult for us to do it." Another security guard smiled and said. "Do you think I will let her stay here? I don't even know where she is. How can you bastards who killed my father know?" Ben Jiangxi's hung wanted to break free, but was held down by the 2. The disgusting young man seemed a little impatient and asked the young man, "Do you know why your father is like this?" From a good father to a crazy gambler, the young man did not answer. He still said to himself, he should feel honored, he is involved in a great plan. "Eat lemon. Dawdle, do it quickly, make me wait for so long. Do you know it's cold outside?" The person who spoke was not someone else, but Lin Zian, who was blowing the cold wind outside. But he had already come in, and everyone present was looking at him. Lin Zian was not worried that someone would see his face. He had a hood on his head, and there was no light here. He took out the pistol he had just taken from the man in a suit who was guarding the door and pointed it at everyone. "Everyone, raise your hands. Don't move. Guns don't have eyes." The disgusting young man raised his hands honestly. The security guards saw it and did the same thing. The trapped Motoshi's hung was thrown to the ground by them and fainted. Before reaching a certain level of strength, guns are very useful weapons. Lin Zian always thought so. But what Lin Zian didn't expect was that Japan banned guns, didn't it? Why are the street scums equipped with guns? Although they are just rubber bullets. "Sir, you should know the consequences of offending an onmyoji," the young man said confidently. "You are an onmyoji? Then I'll shoot you and see if you can't die. My profession is still a mage. You dare to be arrogant with me with such a long spell?" Pre-shake Lin Zian punched him in the stomach and then took off all the equipment of the young man. Lin Zian held the ring and murmured, "No. It's different from what the old Taoists said. The old Taoists said that it was a jade ring with dragons and tigers carved on the outer wall and hexagrams engraved on the inner wall. It was passed down by the older generation and had a certain history. Now this ring is at most 10 years old and is still made of metal. There is no dragon, tiger, or gossip, only a small snake coiled on it. Lin Xian sensed the magic circle in the ring. Although it was only a simple defensive magic circle, it was indeed the breath of Longhu Mountain. Is it a replica? Lin Xian was puzzled for a while and asked the young man, "Where did you get this ring? Tell me the truth." The young man obviously didn't suffer enough and wanted to remain silent in front of Lin Xian, which didn't work in front of Lin Xian. When Lin Xian opened his bottle, he panicked and shouted at Lin Xian, "Are you crazy? You can't control it, give the ring back to me, otherwise everyone here will die." It would be a pity to believe him. Lin Xian asked him again, "Tell me, how did you get this ring?" After listening to the young man's words, the others' attention was on the bottle, but they couldn't see the black shadow. They only knew that something was going to happen, and they knew from the young man's face that it would definitely not be a good thing. Lin Xian ignored the young man and drove the black shadow directly towards one of the security guards, and then the security guard fell to the ground without any sign, and only the young man and Lin Xian saw the black shadow enter the security guard's body. Soon another security guard followed suit and fell to the ground. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 5. The young man didn't understand that Lin Xian had been playing tricks on him. The structure of the magic array in the small bottle was very simple and interesting. It had the characteristics of China, but it was also very different. It should be a magic array derived from Japan. However, the magic arrays in Japan were all passed down from China. There was nothing strange about it. The magic arrays in Japan were considered local characteristics. Lin Xian could operate it after a little trial and error. How can you control the resentful ghost? Who are you? Are you also a yin-yang master? The young man had already lost his sense of proportion. Facing his question, Lin Xian replied with a smirk, "Didn't I say that my profession is a magician? This resentful ghost is man-made, right? Where did you learn this method? How many people did you kill to have so much resentment? No wonder I always feel that you are a little disgusting. It turns out that you are haunted by resentment. If you dare to touch me, my teacher will definitely not let you go," the young man said viciously. "It seems that you still don't understand the situation. Stop talking nonsense, tell me about the ring. You can feel comfortable, otherwise, I think the resentful ghost you created with your own hands really wants to be intimate with you." The master, after saying that, Lin Xian controlled the resentful ghost to float around the young man. The young man was very spineless and explained the origin of the ring. He bought the ring. What a pit! Such a big fuss, so much time was wasted. Lin Xian ignored the young man's plea for mercy and handed the young man over to the resentful ghost. The resentful ghost that lost control pounced on the young man. While the young man was wailing, he dealt with the traces, wiped off the fingerprints on the gun, reprinted the fingerprints of the security guard and put it back, went to the kitchen to get a knife, stabbed the security guard and the young man several times, and then put the knife in the hands of the unconscious Moto Shizheng. "You will definitely take the blame." Before leaving, he also took their money away, which was about 300,000 yen, which was another income, and the air ticket money would be in hand tomorrow. It took about 10 minutes for Lin Xian to leave before Moto Shizheng woke up. He sat up, looked at the messy scene and the knife in his hand, threw the knife on the ground, and huddled aside with his head in his hands, trembling. After a long while, he stood up, picked up the knife on the ground, cut the young man's face, exchanged his clothes with the young man, left the house wearing the young man's clothes, set a fire before leaving, and disappeared into the street. As for Lin Xian, he squatted at the door of the bank all night, which scared the security uncle who came to open the door in the morning. "Wake up, go away quickly, this is a bank, don't bother others," the uncle pushed Lin Xian to wake him up. "Ah! My head hurts so much, I really can't use it carelessly," My body is too bad. Lin Zion shook his head and held his forehead with both hands. Now Lin Zion's body is equivalent to a pot with a hole in it, and his soul is the soup in the pot. Originally, most of the soup in the pot has leaked out in more than 10 years, and a bowl of it was poured out yesterday. The pot must be repaired as soon as possible, otherwise no matter how much water is added, it will leak out, and it will become mentally retarded. As the saying goes, pretending to be cool is fun for a while, but you will end up in the crematorium afterwards. I had fun yesterday, but I suffered today. It's all retribution. The security guard couldn't understand what Lin Zion said. People subconsciously speak their native language. Seeing him talking to himself and looking unconscious, he asked, "Are you okay? Do you want me to take you to the hospital?" Lin Zion waved his hands quickly, thinking that he was indeed disturbing others, and apologized to the security guard. "I'm sorry, I'm disturbing your work, I'll leave immediately." After saying that, he stood up with the help of the wall and sat on the steps below. The security guard didn't say anything when he saw Lin Zion cooperating so well. He walked over to open the bank door and then sat on the steps. "Why are you sleeping here? Did you have a quarrel with your family?" Lin Zion is now what he originally looked like, a plain-looking boy with messy hair like a chicken coop. In addition, he squatted here all night, and he really looked like a boy who ran away from home. No, Lin Zion was silent for a while. "I guess so, we had a falling out, so we went out for a walk." Then the two chatted casually, and the uncle was talking most of the time. The uncle talked about his family, a relatively happy family, with a son and a daughter, both very sensible, and his wife was also very virtuous, and he was very satisfied now. Talking about his youth, it was hard to tell that he was a bad boy at that time. "By the way, why are you sleeping here?" the uncle asked in confusion. "I came here to deposit money." Lin Zion patted the backpack on the ground. "Can't you just go to the ATM, or do you not know how to operate it?" "Ha ha ha," the uncle teased. "I don't have a card." Lin Zion laughed. "Also, I'm afraid the ATM can't put it in." "How much can it be, and it can't be put in?" The uncle obviously didn't believe him. "You'll know when the time comes." Lin Zion ignored the uncle's questioning. When he came out of the bank, it was almost 9 o'clock, and he took a taxi directly outside the bank to the airport. I have to say that things at the airport are really expensive. Just a simple meal costs about 3,000 yen, and of course Lin Zion eats a lot. It takes about 1.5 to 2 hours to fly from Nagasaki to Tokyo. A small place has its advantages, at least for Lin Zion. The internet said that the school is in Tokyo, but when Lin Zion found it, he found out that it is in Tokyo, and it is in Kanagawa, and it is not known how far it is from downtown Tokyo. Fortunately, the transportation is quite convenient, with subways and buses. Lin Zion finally found the school, but was told that it was during the holidays and the teacher responsible for the admission procedures was not available. Please complete the admission procedures 2 days before the start of school. After leaving school, the top priority now is to find a place to settle down. For many people, a house is basically a lifelong goal. But for some people, a house is a small goal, and Lin Zion is one of them. Lin Zion found a relatively large agency. As soon as he entered, several ladies came up and asked him what he wanted. It was like visiting a brothel. He quickly went out and looked at the door. "Is that right? It's a housing agency." When he entered again, everyone had left, but Lin Zion still heard some. It turned out to be a child. "His clothes don't look like a rich man. Sisters, let's go." Lin Zion didn't care, and randomly named someone on the field. It's you." The person named came out and was taken to a small round table with some snacks placed on it. "Hello, please sit down. My name is Haraguchi Shigeru. Are you buying a house or renting a house?" Haraguchi Shigeru asked very professionally. "Hello, my name is Kong Mu Tian and I want to buy a house. Lin Zian sat down. Then I mentioned a few conditions. First, it should be near the school. Second, the transportation should be convenient. Third, the neighborhood should be quiet. There are no requirements on the size. It just needs to be passable. After hearing these requirements, the agent checked it on the tablet, and then said awkwardly, "Sir, there are 24 properties that meet the requirements, but the price may be a problem." Lin Zian was a little hesitant after hearing this, and said to the agent, "Introduce it to me first." "Okay sir, here is the information about the houses that meet the requirements." The agent handed a tablet to Lin Zian. After Lin Zian took it, he started to look at it. He didn't know if he looked at it, but he was shocked when he saw it. The first place on the list was a villa with a retro garden design worth more than 230 million yuan. Lin Zian quickly marked it down without even daring to look at the details. Just now I wanted to say that money is not an issue, but luckily I didn't show off, otherwise it would have been embarrassing. After skipping several houses starting with hundreds of millions, a house that Lin Zian could afford appeared. Lin Zian picked out 7 of the remaining rooms and returned the tablet to the agency. "Take me to see these 7 places." The agent looked at the place Lin Zian picked, and his attitude was obviously much more enthusiastic, because the prices he picked were all between 40 million and 20 million. If the business was completed, her commission would not be low, at least more than 1 month. The salary is high. I wandered from noon to around 6 o'clock before arriving at the last place. I stood on the balcony and listened to the agent's introduction. It gets dark earlier now, so many houses start to turn on the lights. The hazy light gives the residential area a different kind of beauty. But a scar ruined this beauty. There were scattered lights everywhere, but it was dark there. Lin Zian pointed there and asked the agent, "Where is that place? Why is there no one living there?" The agent followed Lin Zian's hand and saw where it was. He quickly removed Lin Zian's hand and said in horror, "Don't point there. It's very evil there. There seems to be a ghost." Lin Zian looked at her and smiled, "How do you know there is a ghost there? Have you seen it with your own eyes?" The agent immediately turned into a gossip, "You don't know, my company is also responsible for that place. There are a lot of rumors there. At first, people just felt dizzy when they moved in, but then it became more and more serious." "What rumors?" "Items will move by themselves, and at night there were dark shadows, and some people almost died inside. Our company did not believe in evil at first and took over the place. In 2 years, there were several owners there, and none of them could stay for more than a week. The rumors became more and more strange. In the end, even the people nearby moved away. The company wanted to sell it as soon as possible and repeatedly lowered the price. Now it is only more than 18 million, but the rumors have spread long ago and no one comes to buy it." "That means no one died inside." Lin Zian thought for a moment. The agent hesitated for a while, nodded and said, "It seems that no one has died inside. The seriously injured person said he saw a black shadow following him, and he fell down the stairs when he was running. So, I'm just scaring myself." "What's the matter?" Lin Zian comforted her with a smile. "You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 6. "That's not what you said," Shigeru Haraguchi patted Lin Ziangsu. "Anyway, we ordinary people should not touch these things." Lin Zian didn't say anything, just looked there. Seeing this, Haraguchi Shigeru quickly pulled him and said to him, "You don't want to take a look, do you? I'm indeed a little interested." "If you don't mind taking me there," Lin Zian said to her with a smile. "Impossible. I won't go." "You have to go by yourself," Haraguchi Shigeru said in horror. Then I'll go by myself. After saying that, he walked away. Hey! Don't leave, we can't see this house yet. Haraguchi Shigeru wanted to stop him, but Linzian ignored her. It was dinner time, and there was no one on the road. Linzian was walking when he suddenly stopped and said to the back, "Don't follow me," or, "Come together." But there was no one behind, only the dimly lit street lamp still stood. Seeing no one responded, Linzian turned around and continued walking. Not long after, Linzian turned around again and said, "I told you not to follow me anymore, come out." A woman in business attire walked out from the corner. It was Haraguchi Shigeru. "It's none of your business where I go." Shigeru Haraguchi said hesitantly, "My home is over there. I'm going home, not following you." When Linzian saw this, he did not expose her and said to her, "Then please leave first, Miss Haraguchi-shige." Humph! Haraguchi Shigeru turned around and walked away, quickly surpassing him who was standing there. Linzian saw that her temper was not right, so he did not touch her, but slowly followed her. Soon, Shigeru Haraguchi slowed down, walked together with Linzian, and then asked cautiously, "Are you ready to buy a house?" Linzian became interested and wanted to tease her. He stared at her and said, "I will definitely buy it, but what kind of house I buy? It still depends on you." "Why are you looking at me?" Haraguchi Shigeru thought for a moment before reacting, covering his chest with his hands. "I will never betray myself, you damn pervert." "What are you covering up?" "It's not as big as mine," Linzian said with disdain. "You, go to hell. If I had known I wouldn't have come. It's a shame that I still worry about you." Haraguchi Shigeru threw Linzian away and stormed away. Although Linzian knew that she was worried about this business, she still had good intentions. Linzian quickly caught up and apologized, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have made fun of you." After hearing Linzian's apology, she didn't say anything, she just slowed down. After waiting for a long time, she seemed to have figured it out and said these words that did not match the preface and the follower. "I also know some of the unspoken rules of this industry. Every time I see those people go out with clients, they come back and complete a business in less than an hour. Not only do they get a commission from the company, but they also easily get rich. To be honest, I'm really envious. I've spent a whole day with you and introduced so many things, but it's not necessarily successful. If it's successful, I'll not only waste my time, but I may also lose other customers." She choked up and continued, "I have a friend who joined the company at the same time as me. Now she is someone else's mistress. That person bought her a house, and I handled the house. In fact, my performance is not bad. But those seniors always excluded me." She stopped suddenly, and Linzian could only stop. She lowered her head and said nothing, and the air seemed to freeze. "Is it because I didn't sell myself out like them? Is there anything wrong with being good-looking?" she almost shouted. Linzian interrupted her and asked, "Do you know why I chose you when there were so many people present?" "Why?" She turned her head and looked at Linzian, tears welling up in her eyes. Although Linzian knew that he picked it randomly, he definitely couldn't say that. Linzian looked into her eyes and smiled, "Because you look good when you smile. Come and show me a smile." After saying that, he stretched out his hand to wipe away Haraguchi Shigeru's tears, but thinking that the relationship between the two was not that familiar, his hand stopped in mid-air in embarrassment. Haraguchi Shige gently knocked off Linzian's hand and said with a smile, "I'm not so bad that I need a student to comfort me, I'm just complaining. Look, isn't this great? Let's go. I'll treat you to dinner later." "Eat? I want to eat the most expensive thing." Haraguchi Shigeru came to life when he heard that Linzian was going to treat her to dinner. If it weren't for the tears on his face, it would have been impossible to tell that he had cried just now. Linzian suspected that he had been deceived and had to admit that the woman was really a natural actress. "That's not okay. I'm just a high school student." At the entrance of the haunted house, the two were blocked by the gate. It's so scary here. Let's go back. Haraguchi Shigeru tugged on Linzayan's clothes. Look over there, didn't you say there's no one around? Linzayan pointed to a 1.5-story classic Japanese-style building with lights on next to it. Hey! There are really people living there. Haraguchi Shigeru looked in the direction Linzayan pointed. Let's go. Linzayan ignored her and left. Are you really leaving? Haraguchi Shigeru waited for Linzayan's answer in confusion. What are you doing if you don't leave? You can't get in. Do you still want to stay here? Wait for me, please slow down. Seeing Linzayan walking away, Shigeru Haraguchi quickly followed him. The two sat in an izakaya selected by Haraguchi Shigeru. Haraguchi Shigeru was drinking plum wine, while Linzayan was drinking a glass of boiled water, under the pretext that minors cannot drink alcohol. Speaking of what happened just now, Haraguchi Shigeru asked Linzayan, why did you leave so quickly just now? You haven't even entered yet. Linzayan rolled his eyes and drank a glass of wine. How do I get in? Do you have a key? I have one. Didn't I say that this place belongs to our company? Haraguchi Shigeru said while eating the tempura that had just been served. Linzayan looked at the tempura that she had occupied, and said helplessly, why didn't you say so earlier? I wanted to go in and take a look. The teriyaki chicken leg rice here is really delicious. I order this every time I come here. Linzayan looked at Haraguchi Shigeru, who wanted to change the subject, and did not ask her again, but went along with her words. The food here is really good. Linzayan took a bite of the pork chop rice. This meal cost almost 4,000 yen, and Haraguchi Shigeru did not overcharge him. In Nihon, it is very cheap for two people to eat more than 4,000 yen. After bidding farewell to Haraguchi Shigeru, who had to catch the bus at the entrance of the izakaya, Linzayan came to the haunted house alone. When he came here just now, he found that there was indeed something unusual here. A strange breath was looming in the house, but Haraguchi Shigeru was next to him, and he couldn't use his spiritual sense randomly, so Linzayan decided to get rid of Haraguchi Shigeru first and then come to take a look. With a jump of his legs and a single hand, he jumped over the almost 1-meter-high wall and touched inside. This is a modern 3-story building with an area of about 200 square meters. There is also a small backyard behind it, but it is already overgrown with weeds. After a circle outside, he didn't find anything. It seems that the problem lies inside. He easily opened the door with wire. When he went inside, a stale smell hit him. According to Haraguchi Shigeru, the last owner moved out 5 months ago. Obviously, she was in a hurry when she left, and her belongings were messy. Linzayan reached out and touched the table. His hands were full of dust, and the agency didn't send someone to clean it regularly. Although he could see at night, it was better to turn on the lights. Linzayan found the switch and tried to turn on the lights, but it was obviously impossible. Is there electricity without paying the electricity bill? If there is electricity, it will really be a haunted house, the kind that is open in an amusement park. Linzayan checked the rooms one by one, from the first floor to the 3rd floor. It must be said that this place is a bit big, which wasted a lot of Linzayan's time, but Linzayan still suppressed the idea of using his spiritual sense. Linzayan has never lacked patience. Now there is still the basement and the roof. The roof is probably not the basement. Linzayan, who has made up his mind, came down from the 3rd floor and found the door to the basement at the corner of the stairs on the 1st floor. There was an ordinary lock on the door. Linzayan just picked it up and touched it lightly, and the lock fell to the ground. He didn't care about the lock on the ground and opened the door directly. There is only one room in the basement, but it is very large. It is cleaner inside than outside. There are no various sundries piled up. There are only a few wine boxes and a few wooden shelves with various strange crafts on them, and some knife racks with a few knives on them. Linzayan carefully sensed the nearby aura, and following his feeling, he found it on a shelf with some small handicrafts. A wooden fox mask with red and white as the main colors. It should be an old object, the once bright red on it has faded, leaving only a faint outline. Picking it up and looking at it for a while, Lin Zian tried to stimulate the power in it, and he felt that a power was distorting his perception. Especially when staring at the mask, the feeling was stronger. Lin Zian also found a seal inside it, but it was destroyed. After a while, Lin Zian understood the function of the mask, which makes people hallucinate and affects people's emotions. It is estimated that its first owner just threw it in the basement as a handicraft, but its power slowly spread out from the seal. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 7. After the handover, Haraguchi Shigeru said that the property title registration would be completed within 2 weeks, and then it would be sent to his home, which is the haunted house. Lin Zian also asked her if she could contact the sanitation department. She said that other houses were okay, but not this house. Neither the housekeeping company nor the moving company would accept the business there because it was too famous in the area. After hearing this, Lin Zian no longer needed to stay. He took the key to the house and went back to clean up. After Lin Zian left, Shigeru Haraguchi looked at the documents on the table and felt uncomfortable. Am I wrong? I went to the business office and connected the lifelines, that is, water, electricity, and gas. In fact, the workload of cleaning is not very large. Except for a few rooms on the second floor, the other rooms are all empty. It is obvious that the predecessor has cleaned them. My predecessor has not moved away the basic furniture on the first floor. I will make a final decision on whether to replace it or not. We have all the cleaning tools now. Just clean it now and it will be habitable. She started cleaning from the third floor. As soon as she opened the window, she saw Michiko Oda hanging clothes. The sound of opening the window just now also made her notice Lin Zian. Lin Zian smiled at her, but she ignored it and stopped there, not knowing what she was thinking. Lin Zian didn't care. After all, he wasn't money and everyone liked him. He reinvested his energy in the cause of health. It is worth mentioning that although his spirit is lacking, his physical fitness is still very good, and he is clean and tidy. The sound of the doorbell interrupted his movements. He stood up and looked out of the window, only to see Michiko Oda standing outside the door. Although Lin Zian was puzzled, he still went to open the door. Hello, Ms. Oda, what can I do for you? Lin Zian opened the door and asked. I came to see if I could help. She held her apron in both hands and said a little unnaturally. Only then did Lin Zian notice that the apron she was wearing should be from a certain bakery, because it had the bakery's logo printed on it. Although it looked old and turned a little white after washing, it was very clean, which at least showed that the weaving Michiko Tien is a diligent and thrifty woman. If someone came to help, Lin Zian couldn't let her stand outside the door, so he quickly stepped aside and invited her in. Shigeki-kun's home is so big, Michiko Oda sighed after looking around. Come up here. I haven't finished the first floor yet. I'll start from the top. Most of the second floor is already finished. Okay, Michiko Oda's eyes left the first floor and followed Lin Zian. Is Madam a full-time housewife? No, I just have a day off today. Where's your husband? Why haven't you seen him? Have you gone to work? Suddenly the footsteps behind him stopped, and Lin Zian looked back in confusion. Seeing Michiko Oda stopping on the stairs with her head lowered, Lin Zian realized that he might have said the wrong thing and immediately changed the subject. How old is your daughter? If she looks like Ms. Oda, she must be a beautiful girl. However, Michiko Oda ignored him, and Lin Zian could only say to her helplessly, you can do whatever you want. He slipped aside to do some hygiene, and it was really difficult for women to serve him. Oda also picked up the tools and entered the room next to her. Lin Zian saw what was going on and quickly stopped her. Oh! Don't go in. but it was too late. She opened the door, took a look, and quickly closed it again as if she saw something surprising. Looking at Michiko Oda, who was blushing, Lin Zion had no choice but to explain. This is something left by the previous owner. If it's inconvenient for you, madam, I'll do it. Michiko Oda only replied, okay. Then she went to other places. Lin Zion took down the red wallpaper in the room, took down some props, organized them, and packed them in garbage bags. I have to admire the previous owner for having a wide range of interests. The whip candle was the lowest among them, but the others were even more eye-opening to him. Ah! A scream came from the side. Lin Zion rushed out and saw Michiko Oda falling to the ground. He quickly helped her up and asked her what happened. There's a ghost. I saw it, she said tremblingly. Lin Zion, who was supporting her, frowned. Lin Zion clearly felt that her trembling was very abnormal, as well as her heartbeat, eyes, etc. This was not like a frightened person. The human subconscious cannot lie. Not to mention that he received professional training under his father, even ordinary people could tell that she was lying. But why did she lie? The motive for the crime was unknown. Lin Zion thought for a moment and had no clue. He could only stabilize her first. He had no time to waste now. In that case, you can go back first, and I will do the rest. No, Michiko Oda quickly replied, then realized what she had said, and quickly broke away from Lin Zion, saying, I'm here to help, you don't have to worry about me. Madam, is there something you want to tell me? Lin Zion asked. There's nothing wrong with me. Then he picked up the rag again. Her panicked look made people want to protect her, but Lin Zion Lee didn't want to pay attention to her. Lies meant trouble, and he hated trouble the most. Now he just wants to get it done quickly and send this great god back. When Lin Zion walked back, he realized that he was holding something in his hand, a purple adult toy. He accidentally pressed the button. Along with the vibration, a sound of electric motor came out, and the toy squirmed crazily in his hand. Michiko Oda, who was not far away, looked over after hearing the sound, and then blushed. Pervert. Although she said it very quietly, Lin Zion's hearing was sensitive and he still heard it. He didn't explain, just took the squirming toy and left. After Lin Zion disposed of the 2 large bags of toys and cleaned the room, Michiko Oda had almost finished the 2nd floor. It can be seen that she is very skilled and should do hygiene at home regularly. Lin Zion chose the largest room on the 2nd floor as a bedroom, took down the original bed and threw it away. He didn't know what the previous owner had done on that bed. Put the newly bought big bed on, and buy new quilts and everything else, wash them and hang them to dry on the 3rd floor. By the time Lin Zion bought the things and finished them, the 1st floor was almost finished by Michiko Oda. Looking at her face flushed, a few hairs were wet with sweat and stuck to her forehead and neck. Oops, it's a heart-pounding feeling. Lin Zion called Oda Michiko over, took out 2 pieces of 10,000 denomination money, and handed them to her. Shigeki-kun, what do you mean? Michiko Oda's reaction was extremely strong. Mrs. Oda has done me a big favor. This is a thank you gift. The money was not given randomly. When he went out to buy a bed just now, he had already checked the price on his mobile phone. I didn't do anything. It's not a thank you gift. You can take it back. Seeing that she didn't want it, Lin Zion didn't insist and said to her, let's do this. I'll invite your family to dinner tonight. Don't refuse in a hurry. Just think of it as celebrating my move. Remember to come over, otherwise it will be difficult for me as a neighbor. Do. Seeing that she agreed, Lin Zion breathed a sigh of relief. He was afraid of owing a debt of gratitude because this kind of thing was very troublesome. It was almost 3 o'clock before the house was finished. After sending Michiko Oda away, he went to the supermarket, because the home appliances were all good and he just needed to buy some food. I have to say that the transportation here is more convenient than the 7 places he picked. There is a large supermarket and many convenience stores within a 20-minute walk, and it is not far from the school. It takes about 30 minutes to walk. There are also buses and subway stations. Buying this place for 18 million yen is a waste of money. There are 2 large 3-door refrigerators at home, one for snacks and one for food. He doesn't have time to go out and buy groceries every day, so he just buys enough for a few days and picks out a few dishes and condiments. The vegetables in the supermarket are all packaged. Linzian doesn't like this and can't choose. After buying all the things, Linzian returned home loaded with 2 big bags of loot. When he returned to the intersection, he saw Michiko Oda standing at the gate. Linzian thought she had left something at his place just now, so he could only speed up his pace. "What's wrong with Mrs. Oda?" Linzian asked while taking the key to open the door. "I'm sorry, I can't go to your place to eat." Michiko Oda closed her legs, stood upright, bent over and lowered her head, making a 90-degree bow. Linzian, who was not from Neon, knew that this was an apology. He quickly put down his things, gave him some support, and asked, "What's wrong? Is there any inconvenience?" My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 8. My daughter is shy and refuses to come over. Sorry, Oda. Michiko bowed again. Linzian didn't understand why Japanese people like to bow so much, but this time it was 3 bows, which was unacceptable. "It's okay, this question is simple, I'll just make it and take it over. It's a good opportunity to visit your home. Mrs. Oda won't be unwelcome." "Okay, okay. I'll go prepare it. If Reina is offended, please don't mind. She is shy. Reina should be her daughter." After saying goodbye to Oda Michiko, Linzian prepared tonight's dishes. He planned to make beef stewed with potatoes, tofu soup, braised crucian carp, and sweet and sour spare ribs. Beef stewed with potatoes takes a long time, so you have to prepare it first. Clean the casserole you just bought, cut the beef into pieces, blanch it with boiling water and take it out for later use, peel the potatoes and cut them into pieces, soak them in clean water for later use, and then prepare ginger and green onions and other auxiliary ingredients. I have to say here that the green onions in Japan are the kind of green onions, which don't have much green onion fragrance and taste a little worse. Looking at the gurgling casserole, Linzian wanted to take care of the mess left over from yesterday while the beef was stewing. Ordinary people can't really see this place. The floor at the staircase was divided into 2 halves. The half close to the basement was covered with dust, and the other half was as clean as new. Linzian walked into the basement with a broom. The things were still the same as when he left. He picked up the fox mask and simply repaired the original seal. This would definitely not be a cure, but he didn't have the energy to waste it now. He would talk about it later. At about 6 o'clock, Linzian rang the doorbell of the Oda family and took the dishes with Oda Michiko. Linzian noticed that her family should not be rich, or even poor. The home appliances were very old and full of historical flavor. It can be seen that the table should be second-hand because it was full of graffiti and scratches. Another thing to note is that when he changed his shoes in the entrance hall just now, he didn't find men's slippers, and there were not even any extra slippers. He was barefoot. After setting up the dishes, Michiko Oda untied her apron and said to Linzian, "Shigeki-kun, please sit down first. I'll go call Reina." Linzian was very curious about this Reina Oda. Michiko Oda walked out of the corridor with someone. "Come, this is Shigeki-kun." A head popped out from behind Michiko Oda, but it was lowered. Linzian stood up and walked in front of her, squatted down, smiled and said to her, "Hello, I'm Shigeki Oda, you are Reina." Linzian reached out to touch her head, but she turned her head away. At this time, Reina Oda's face was revealed. It was a very cute little face, but her face was a little pale, her body was a little thin, and her long hair was draped over her shoulders. Oda Michiko bowed again when she saw this. "I'm sorry, Shigeki-kun. Don't worry so much, come and eat, it won't taste good if it gets cold." Lin Zion pointed to the dishes on the table and said. Oda Reina was pushed out from behind by her mother. After they sat down, Lin Zion introduced the dishes to them. "This is authentic Chinese cuisine. Try my cooking skills." People in Neon would put their hands together before eating and say something like, "I'm going to start eating," but Lin Zion didn't have this habit. However, he still cooperated with them and waited for them to finish talking before picking up his chopsticks. At the beginning, Oda Reina was a little hesitant, but she couldn't resist the temptation of delicious food. She picked a piece of sweet and sour pork ribs, which was wrapped in a layer of sweet and sour sauce. It was crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. When she took a bite, there was thick gravy under the crispy skin, and the fragrance overflowed between her lips and teeth. Lin Zion clearly saw her body tremble, not knowing whether it was sour or hot. Seeing that she ate a few pieces of pork ribs and didn't eat anything else, Lin Zion picked up a piece of beef and put it in her bowl. "Try this, it's best to eat this now." Who knew that she gave the beef that Lin Zion picked up to her mother, without even looking at Lin Zion, and lowered her head to eat a few mouthfuls of rice. Seeing Lin Zion's embarrassment, Oda Michiko hurriedly said, "Shigeki-kun's cooking is delicious. Did you learn it specifically?" "Not really, I like to cook, it's a hobby." Lin Zion is an adult anyway, psychologically, he won't get angry with the child. The meal is a happy one for both the host and the guest, at least that's what he thinks. Oda Michiko went to wash the dishes. Lin Zion and Oda Reina sat in the living room. Until Oda Michiko finished washing the dishes, the two didn't say a word. Oda Michiko, who was about to see her off, stopped at the door. He took the pot back himself. Before leaving, Oda Michiko looked like she wanted to say something but stopped, but he didn't ask. If she wanted to say something, she would say it, there's no rush. Back home, Lin Zion enjoyed the extravagant capitalist life, taking a bath, not a simple bath, but there is a hot spring at home. The toilet and bathroom here are separate, there are toilets on the first and second floors. There is only one bathroom on the first floor, at the back of the house. It is very large, and the shower head and other things are similar to other bathrooms, but this is not a bathtub, but a round pool inlaid with smooth pebbles, with temperature control, filled with water. Lying in it, Lin Zion felt like he was about to melt. After changing into the newly bought clothes and sitting cross-legged on the bed, his soul slowly sank into the spirit platform, and a white ball floated on Lin Zion's spirit platform. This ball is the accumulation of Lin Zion over the years, and it is almost completed. If it is completed, he will not be as embarrassed as before. Lin Zion's spirit and the white ball sat opposite each other. After a while, a golden thread connected the two. Lin Zion seemed to be painting, drawing lines on the surface of the white ball bit by bit, using the golden thread as the brush. I don't know how long it took, maybe an hour, maybe a month. The lines on the white ball became more and more complex, and his soul was almost broken. After a while, it turned into blue smoke and was inhaled by the white ball. His breathing is getting weaker and weaker now, his chest barely rises and falls, and his hands and feet are cold. An indescribable feeling emanated from the spiritual platform, and then the entire spiritual platform began to collapse, turning into a stream of light that merged into the white ball, and the spiritual platform began to turn into nothingness. Suddenly, the white ball began to shake violently and emit bursts of golden light. I don't know how long it took, but a baby's cry came from the void, the white ball cracked, and a curled up little man appeared from it. Lin Zion opened his eyes suddenly, and a strong heartbeat came from Lin Zion's body. Lin Zion jumped up from the bed, breathing in the air. It's really terrible. This broken technique is so poisonous that I almost got cold thinking back to just now. He felt a throbbing in his heart. However, if you survive a catastrophe, there will be blessings later. Once the first step is completed, at least your life is saved, and it will be easy in the future. This time he recast his soul and almost failed. Fortunately, at the critical moment, he gave up his cultivation and turned it into nutrients, barely saving his life. A 3-inch little man emerged from his head, sitting cross-legged. At a glance, he looked very similar to him. Actually, his name is Golden Armored Warrior, or he can also be called Protector God. He is a little small now, but he will grow bigger in the future. Lin Zion opened the small bottle that he had snatched, and a black shadow rushed out. When he saw the villain, he turned into a cloud of smoke as if he was seeing some terrible natural enemy, and tried to escape. The villain opened his mouth, and the black shadow was sucked into his mouth. As the resentful ghost was digested by the guardian god, the energy in it was fed back to Lin Zion's body, and his face, which was still a little pale, immediately turned rosy. Lin Zion touched his belly and said, "You are full, but I haven't eaten yet." I got out of bed and looked at my phone. 5 days had passed. No wonder you're so hungry. Ordinary people would have died long ago if they didn't eat or drink for 5 days, but he just turned his mouth to the faucet and drank heavily like a normal person. As soon as I opened the refrigerator, looking for something to pacify my stomach, the doorbell rang at the door. "What's wrong with Mrs. Oda?" Lin Zion was eating a chocolate bar and looking at Michiko Oda outside the door. "Excuse me, Mr. Shigeki. I just saw you turning on the lights. Come over and check. Are you okay?" Hearing her answer, Lin Zion looked confused and asked, "What else can I do?" "I'm sorry, I thought too much," she said, and bowed to Lin Zion again. "Because I haven't seen Shigeki-kun turn on the lights in the past few days, and no one opened the door when I rang the doorbell, I thought something had happened." Lin Zion had no intention of blaming her, not to mention that she was just kind-hearted and came to care about her neighbors. "It's okay. I just went out a few days ago. Thank you, Mrs. Oda, for your concern." Farewell to Michiko Oda. Lin Zion looked at her back and suddenly felt that she was miserable. It must be very hard to live such a humble life every day. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 9. Everyone has their own way of living, and Lin Zion is not qualified to judge other people's lives. After returning home, he emptied the refrigerator in one meal. Looking at the empty refrigerator, he just went out for a walk after dinner. He planned to buy some vegetables to store. In addition, he planned to renovate the basement, but it was not possible now. He needed some materials. Walking alone on a quiet path, there were classic Japanese buildings on both sides, the sunset glowed red in the sun, and the breeze blew slowly, which was indeed a unique flavor. The office workers who hurried by from time to time did not have time to appreciate it. Now this beautiful scenery belonged to him alone. The main reason was that he was in a very good mood today, and everything he saw was pleasing to the eye. Lin Zion's behavior was very strange, all based on his own preferences, without any logic. Especially when someone ruined his good mood. "Old Wu, old Wu." A shrill cry sounded. The few little brats in front were gathered in the garbage corner. They should have just come back from playing baseball. They were all wearing baseball equipment. In fact, you don't need to look to know that there must be something wrong. This kind of half-grown children are energetic and want to make trouble all day long. Lin Zion walked over and heard them shouting. "Look at this cat, it looks so strange, it must be a monster, beat it to death. Beat it to death, don't let it escape, stop it quickly. Get lost." Lin Zion kicked over, and the one who shouted the loudest stopped for a moment, saw Lin Zion, and shouted, "Run, the monster is coming." Several people ran away, and Lin Zion did not chase them. He took a look at the cat on the ground, a three-color cat, with a broken tail and a missing piece of the left front leg, but these were previous wounds. There was blood on its head, which should have been caused just now. The most peculiar thing about this cat is its pair of green eyes, but it obviously doesn't want Lin Zion to observe it, and its hair all over its body is blown up, and it is grinning at him. Lin Zion took a look and left. In the supermarket, Lin Zion mostly picked meat, not because he didn't like vegetables, but because vegetables are difficult to preserve, but meat is different, it can be kept in the refrigerator for 4 or 5 days. He also met Michiko Oda in the supermarket. Just as he was about to say hello, a man came out from the side, as if he knew Michiko Oda, and started talking to her. But he started to make moves after a few words, and Lin Zion hurried over. What a coincidence, Mrs. Oda. The man was obviously disgusted with Lin Zion's appearance and ruined his good deeds. Lin Zion didn't care so much, and separated the two of them from the middle, allowing the man to kill with his eyes. Seeing that it didn't work, the man said, "Think it over carefully," and left. Before leaving, he stared at Lin Zion. "Mrs. Oda, are you okay?" "I'm fine, fortunately Shigeki-kun is here." "Who is that person?" Lin Zion signaled with his eyes. "That's the manager of the bakery where I work." Michiko Oda smiled bitterly. The two strolled on the street, neither of them spoke, just walked quietly. "We're here." Lin Zion stopped. Yes." Michiko Oda was a little flustered, but she lowered her head, so Lin Zion couldn't tell what she was looking at. Michiko Oda was about to leave when Lin Zion called her and said, "Come to my place for dinner tomorrow. Remember to call Reina. Don't refuse. She's growing up now, so she can't eat this. Just today, I'm only buying it today." Hearing his words, Michiko Oda panicked and tried to hide the bag behind her. Lin Zion grabbed her hand and comforted her, "It's just a discounted product. There's nothing shameful about it. I used to fight for food with dogs on the roadside, but I didn't think it was bad. It was all for life." Because the fruits in Neon are very expensive, Michiko Oda would not buy fruits under normal circumstances. Today, she happened to see the supermarket processing these fruits. If she met her normally, she would buy them, but she was seen by Lin Zion today. When she was in the supermarket just now, Lin Zion noticed that Michiko Oda bought all the discounted products picked out by the supermarket for processing, which made it difficult for her. Michiko Oda raised her head and met Lin Zion's eyes. Clear and bright, different from the obscene and evil eyes that other people looked at her with, this was her first feeling. She didn't say anything, just nodded. Looking at her back as she opened the door, Lin Zion thought that he should help as much as he could. A kind person should not live so humbly. Opening the door, a trace of blood was caught by Lin Zion. Following the smell, Lin Zion found the dying cat lying on the dry grass in the backyard. It was the three-flowered cat just now. Lin Zion was quite surprised. Judging from the situation, this cat has been here for a while. What a fate. Because the backyard has not been done yet, weeds have grown, so Lin Zion didn't know what was inside. When Sanhua saw him, she didn't get angry, she called softly, turned around and disappeared into the bushes. Just as Lin Zion was about to leave, it came out of the bushes again, holding a kitten in its mouth, a pure black kitten. Sanhua walked to Lin Zion, put the kitten down, licked it, and looked up at Lin Zion. "The White Emperor entrusted his orphan to me." Lin Zion was a little amused. The little black cat didn't realize anything, and cried a few times in a baby voice, and wanted to get into Sanhua's arms. Sanhua nudged the kitten with her head and pushed it to Lin Zion's feet. Lin Zion picked up the kitten, looked at it for a while, and said to Sanhua, "Good." Sanhua called him, and then fell straight to the ground. "You are really amazing for hanging on until now with just one breath." Lin Zion put the kitten down and buried Sanhua under the cherry tree in the yard. The kitten didn't know why its mother had to get under the soil, so it shook its head and scratched the mud with its claws. Linzian picked up the kitten and said to it, "Do you see these cherry blossoms? You can see them next spring." Linzian lifted it up and said to it, "Just call yourself Hua, okay? If you don't say it, I'll take it as your consent. Forget it, I'll still call you Beatty." The kitten tilted its head and looked at him in confusion, not understanding what this man wanted to do. Xiaobai is still young and can't eat cat food, so Linzian is going to buy some goat milk powder and some clothes. He found that he seemed to have only 2 sets of clothes, which was a bit too cheap for a multi-millionaire. "I just finished bathing Xiaobai, but found that there was no hair dryer. I was about to borrow one from the next door. As soon as I arrived at the door, I saw that the door of Oda's house was not closed. I walked over and saw Odarina alone, with her head down and her knees huddled in the corridor at the door, holding a broken rabbit doll in her hand." Linzian saw this, went over and squatted in front of her, and asked softly, "What's wrong with Rina?" Odarina raised her head. Linzian saw her eyes and was stunned for a moment. Linzian touched her head and smiled and said, "It's okay, I'm here." This time she didn't avoid Linzian, but her body trembled slightly. Linzian pushed open the shoji door, Japanese sliding door, in the hall, and Oda Michiko and a middle-aged man knelt face to face. Linzian didn't know what they were talking about, but Oda Michiko looked very embarrassed. Michiko Oda looked a little surprised by Linzian's appearance, but before she could speak, the middle-aged man said, "Are you the one who bought the Springfield mansion?" The Springfield mansion is a haunted house. Its first owner was named Springfield. Later, after the rumor of ghosts spread, people nearby would use Springfield Mansion to refer to the haunted house. Linzian glanced at the man, who was fat and big-eared, with a greasy face. He looked like a wretched uncle outside. Linzian didn't think about him at all, and asked Michiko Oda, "Mrs. Oda, is there anything I can help you with?" Linzian glanced at the middle-aged man, "If someone harasses you, I can help you get rid of him." Humph. Are young people nowadays so arrogant? No wonder they dared to buy the Springfield mansion. It turns out that they don't know how to live or die. The middle-aged man laughed. "It's none of your business what I buy, and you are not qualified to manage it. Get out of my sight now, otherwise the consequences will be serious," Linzian said slowly. The middle-aged man was about to stand up, but he was shorter than Michiko Oda, and looked like a standing winter melon. Michiko Oda was at least 160 centimeters tall, while he was at most 150 centimeters tall. He looked up at Linzian, who didn't have any murderous intent or other fancy things in his eyes, but he soon became timid and said, "I'll remember you, just wait for me." Then he walked away in disgrace. Linzian turned around and said to Michiko Oda, "Are you okay?" Michiko Oda bowed to Linzian again, "I'm fine, I really troubled Shigeki-kun today." "It's not a problem, we are all neighbors, just helping each other." Linzian waved his hand. In fact, it was mainly because he was bored now, and it was impossible for him to practice. He could only live by idling in this life. The little sister next door was beautiful and spoke well, and she liked it here very much. "I saw Reina outside just now, what happened?" "Ah," Oda Michiko screamed, ran out of the living room, saw Reina outside, and hugged her quickly. Seeing this situation, Linzian didn't say anything and quietly left her house. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 10. Hey. Why did I come here? What did I do just now? Linzian scratched his head. When I got home and saw Xiaobai, I remembered to borrow a hair dryer. However, Xiaobai had already dried it. He had dried it once before going out. Plus, Xiaobai had been rolling in Linzian's bed for so long, so he had already dried it. Linzian grabbed Xiaobai on the bed and leaned over to smell it. There was a faint scent of shower gel. Then he put it on the sofa on the first floor and said to Xiaobai, "This is yours, don't go to my bed, you know." Meow meow. There is no nightlife for those who are cultivating immortals. After taking a simple bath, Lin Xian sat cross-legged on the bed and continued his great cause of cultivating immortals. In fact, the effects of sitting up and lying down are almost the same, but Lin Xian is used to sitting cross-legged and feels that it feels better. Lying down is like sleeping, without the feeling of cultivating immortality. In today's terms, it means there is no soul. When he woke up in the morning, Xiaobai was curled up on Lin Xian's lap. Sunlight poured in from the window, and Lin Xian's whole body seemed to be coated with a layer of golden light. Lin Xian's movements woke up Xiaobai, who stretched out and placed his two small hands on Lin Xian's abdomen. Lin Xian rubbed its little head and said, "Get up, little lazy cat, I have to buy something for you today." I don't know whether he was talking about him or Xiaobai. His response was still a soft cry. Meow. By the way, we still need to prepare lunch. We made an appointment with Mrs. Oda yesterday. What should we eat today? Forget it, let's go take a look. Lin Xian stood up to solve the hygiene problem. It was already after 8 o'clock when he got up. When he went out, he glanced at the house next door. He didn't know what he thought of. Lin Xian knocked on her door, but there was no response. As expected, Michiko Oda was not there, but Lin Xian felt Reina Oda inside the door and thought that she would definitely not open the door. Lin Xian faced the door and said gently, "Tell me what Reina wants to eat today, and I'll make it for you eat." As expected, there was no response, but Lin Xian became interested and sat at the door, chatting with him. "How about we eat garlic pork ribs today? I think you like to eat pork ribs, but you can't just eat pork ribs, but also eat vegetables. Then make a fish-flavored eggplant stew, a yam pork ribs soup, and finally stir-fry a green vegetable." "Okay Lene, I'm going to buy groceries first. Do you want to go to the supermarket together?" Lin Xian stood up, wiped the dust off his butt, and said to the door. "Mom won't be back at noon." A faint voice came from the other side of the door. Lin Xian stopped, turned around, and said to Oda, "Rina, thank you Rina, I didn't even tell her last night. If it wasn't Reina, it would have been a big mistake." There was still no sound coming out from inside, as if the sound just now was an auditory hallucination. "Then I'll make a simple omelette rice for Reina for lunch. I'll make more tonight. But I've just learned how to make omelette rice. If it doesn't taste good, Reina, don't laugh at me." Lin Xian remembered the omelette rice that all the male protagonists in anime would make, but those male protagonists could only cook omelette rice, while Lin Xian could cook everything. Walking on the road to the supermarket, Lin Xian remembered what happened just now, and the corners of his mouth could not help but curl up slightly. Oda Reina's willingness to speak showed that she began to accept him. The feeling of cultivating feelings seemed quite fulfilling to Lin Xian. Maybe he was a lonely person in both his previous life and this life. After picking out the things, we returned home. Nothing happened along the way. It was so peaceful that Lin Xian was not used to it. As soon as he got home, Xiaobai rushed over to him, rubbed his trouser legs, and screamed twice like a baby, as if asking Lin Xian why he didn't bring it with him when he went out. In Lin Xian's opinion, he was probably hungry and just fed him. Mix goat milk powder with warm water and feed it spoon by spoon. Watching Xiaobai eat, a very healing feeling arises spontaneously. No wonder there are so many cat lovers. Lin Xian felt very uncomfortable when he thought about shoveling shit. It was impossible to shovel shit, not even in this life. It seemed that he had to teach it to use the toilet. Since he had never raised a cat and didn't know how to teach it to use the toilet, Lin Xian used modern power and searched online. I was obsessed with sucking cats, and before I knew it, it was past 11 o'clock before I remembered to cook for Reina. Fortunately, the steps for omelette rice were relatively simple. I had to prepare the side dishes. Lin Zion replaced the ham and sausage with fresh shrimps, because many people don't eat green peppers, so Lin Zion replaced the green peppers with more acceptable cucumbers, plus chopped onions, carrots, and herbs. Pour the fried rice into the egg skin, fold it up, pinch the edges tightly, and finally pour tomato juice on it, and add a pudding when placing it on the plate. Originally, Lin Zion wanted to write a few words with tomato juice, but finally gave up. Plain and simple is the truth. Lin Zion skillfully opened the door of Oda's house and knocked on the door. After waiting for a while, he heard a rustling sound and knew that Lene had come out. Lin Zion put the omelette rice at the door. "Rena, remember to eat it? It won't taste good when it's cold. I'll come over to collect the bowls and chopsticks tonight. I'm leaving first." After saying that, he left the Oda family. At 6 o'clock in the evening, it was almost dark, and the exhausted Michiko Oda returned home. For her, who worked 3 jobs, time was like a luxury. "Rina, I'm back. Have you had a good meal today?" Michiko Oda took off her shoes, turned to the back and said. "I had omelette rice." Rina walked out of the room, her light footsteps almost inaudible. Did I leave you an omelette rice?" "I don't remember it," Oda Michiko asked in confusion. "Yes." A knock on the door interrupted Oda Reina's words. Oda Reina ran back to the room, then stretched out half of her head and looked in the direction of the door. "It's so late, who is it?" Oda Michiko shouted to the outside. "I, Shigeki Aoda, come to eat." After hearing this, Oda Michiko was stunned for a moment, as if she remembered something, and hurriedly opened the door in a panic. The door opened, and before Lin Zion spoke, he saw Oda Michiko bowing. "I'm sorry, Shigeki-kun, I forgot the appointment with you." It's okay, you haven't eaten yet," Lin Zion waved his hand. "I haven't eaten yet, sorry to bother Shigeki-kun." Seeing that it was Lin Zion, Oda Reina walked out of the house and handed over a plate. Lin Zion took the plate and said to her, "I changed some ingredients, is Reina used to it?" Oda Reina didn't say anything, just nodded. "Oh. It's Shigeki-kun, thank you for taking care of Reina." Oda Michiko bowed again. "You're welcome, we're all neighbors, just taking care of each other, and I'm also taken care of by you, Mrs. Oda." Thinking of the cat at home, afraid that it would make trouble, Lin Zion said, "Don't be polite, Reina wants to eat somewhere, here, or go to my place." Originally, Lin Zion had turned around and was ready to go back to move things, but a voice behind him said, "Go to your place." Lin Zion felt the joy of harvest at that moment, he didn't turn around, just replied, "Okay." Lin Zion's place is obviously much better, with an independent dining room, an exquisite kitchen, and gorgeous solid wood furniture. At least the lighting is better, not dim yellow. Leading them to the dining room, Lin Zion said, "You sit down first, I'll do it." Oda Michiko had been here at least once, so she didn't seem surprised, but Oda Reina had obviously never been to someone else's house. Whether it was the tall chandelier or the various new electrical appliances, everything was new, but Oda Reina still followed behind Oda Michiko honestly. "Come on, you're welcome, try the soup first." Lin Zion came out with a tray. The dishes were all served, and after the two of them finished talking, Lin Zion briefly introduced the dishes as usual. This time, Oda Reina also ate the ribs first, but also ate other dishes. No one spoke, just ate silently. Oda Michiko took over the job of washing the dishes, and Lin Zion took Oda Reina to the living room to watch TV. Take out 2 cans of juice from the refrigerator, and Lin Zion is ready to get close to Oda Reina. "How old is Reina this year?" This time she didn't even nod her head, her eyes were fixed on the TV, as if something on the TV attracted her attention. Lin Zion didn't know whether she didn't want to answer or didn't know how to answer, so he could only sit and watch TV with her. Ziobai came back from somewhere, and when he saw Oda Reina, he immediately got angry and made a gurgle sound. Otorena was also startled by Xiaobai.